Good evening, everyone, and good day if you're tuning from an international location. My name is Yvonne Xiao, and I am a new alumni fellow of the Communication Leadership Program. I am currently a US content designer at Microsoft, where I use my words to give our user clarity and craft the best user experience. Before joining Microsoft, I helped clients in the private, public, and nonprofit sectors with their digital strategies and social media management. So tonight's topic has a pretty special place in my heart. On behalf of ComLead, I'd like to welcome you to our student-run speaker series. Our topic tonight is digital marketing, a case study and skill building conversation. It is a lovely and very hot evening in Seattle, so thank you all for joining us tonight. I have a few announcements before we get started. We will be recording tonight's conversation. If you have the bandwidth, please do turn on your camera. It's always nice to see your lovely faces, but please keep your microphone off. We will follow Kelly and Yasmin's talk with an audience Q&A session, so please type your questions into the chat box. Our Zoom DJ, Mohammed, will then collect and post questions to our speakers for a portion of our time together. Please ask questions, otherwise I'll be doing weird TikTok dances and you don't want to see that. Now, let me briefly introduce you to Kelly Myers and Yasmin Ali. I'll help them introduce themselves a bit more once our conversation begins. Kelly is currently the Director of Social Media at Microsoft and manages products like Surface devices, Windows operating system, and browsers for consumer audiences. She is also one of our own instructors at the ComLead program and earned her Master's of Communication from ComLead. Yasmin is the CEO and founder of Skillspire, a coding bootcamp on a mission to empower people to pursue the work they love. Skillspire serves adult-age students who are looking for a faster and more affordable path to a new career and career advancement in tech. Kelly and Yasmin, thank you both for joining us this evening. We're going to kick off with a short video first.
Does the COVID-19 pandemic have you or your organization struggling to connect? The University of Washington's Communication Leadership Program is here to help. We have assembled our COVID-19 consultancy to help nonprofits, small businesses, and on-campus departments. We can help you communicate within your organization and with your audience, pivot communication strategies in the face of COVID-19, create videos and other multimedia assets, and host online events. As community builders and communication professionals with expertise in digital technology, our graduate students and alumni are uniquely equipped for this moment. We're offering pro bono consulting, events, and professional connections. Whether you're a business owner, an employee, or simply looking to improve your communication strategies, we're here to help you. For more information and to schedule a consultation, visit bit.ly/UWCOVIDhelp.
All right, Kelly and Yasmin, take it away.
Hi, so thank you. Thanks for the warm introduction, and I'm glad to be here tonight. It is toasty. I've got a fan just to help cool off, but it's 83 in my house right now. As Yvonne mentioned, I do teach at the program, and I also graduated from the ComLead Master's Program several years ago. I think that I still take the record for the longest time it took to get my program, my master's. It took me 6 years to finish up. During the time frame, a single mother, changing jobs, traveling a lot, and I took one class per quarter, and I didn't go during the summertime. So don't be in a hurry if you don't need to be. You will still get there, trust me, and we're all still waiting to champion you on as that goes. I am currently at Microsoft. I'm a boomerang back to the company. I was at Microsoft from 2005 until 2011. I worked in the advertising organization and managed websites globally for Bing ads, as well as the display advertising group within MSN. I left Microsoft specifically to go to a brand to manage brand advertising in a digital space. That went to Starbucks, where I led global digital marketing. It was the global part of digital marketing. So everything from paid, owned, and earned experiences outside of the US primarily, and how to really enable and activate the brand when it doesn't sit in the US organization or the US marketing team. I did that, and I left and went and did partner and product marketing for them. So as their mobile devices came online, I helped really pair those together with an open API system that allowed for things like the Uber case scenario to be able to get your Postmates and your Starbucks and even mobile ordering, which was also fun to do. I was recruited by Disney in 2015 in order to go and do and work on what they called their retail commerce experience. So I managed teams of product marketers and managers who developed their iOS and Android applications for retail for the Disney store. And I also worked with their licensing and commerce divisions to try and think about how do we insert areas that make sense and not are overtly transactional. Disney is very much about creating magic and hiding all of the tools and hiding all of the technology. They never want you to know that when you're standing there on Main Street looking at the parade, there are thousands of cameras behind you and thousands of projectors. They just want you to see the lights and be awed by it all. I left Disney in 2017. They wanted me to move to LA. I have teenagers. You should know first and foremost about me is I am a mother and I'm a super proud mom. But I couldn't imagine taking my kids out of Bellevue, Washington and plopping them down in Burbank, California. No offense to Burbank, no offense to LA. I just couldn't imagine doing that to them. And so took some time off, taught for a year at UW. And then in 2018, took this role back at Microsoft, where I lead, as Yvonne says, all of the consumer-facing social media channels across the entire Modern Life portfolio. There are probably 30 or so people who report into me, everybody from agencies, creatives, copywriters, digital marketing managers, advertising managers, social media experts, etc. That's what I do now. This whole global pandemic has definitely made everything different and difficult, and in some ways more meaningful than in other ways. So I'm here and happy tonight to be able to support Yvonne and her express needs and how we can help her be successful at this point in time, as well as helping all of you answer any questions you may have around how I think about technology, how I think about leadership, and how I think about this moment in time, remembering it's only a moment, and there will be other ones to come.
Yasmin, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi, I'm Yasmin Ali, founder. Yeah, can you hear me clearly?
We can hear you.
Okay, so Yasmin Ali, founder and CEO of Skillspire. I always get asked, how did you start this company? What was your motivation? So I want to kind of start, from the very beginning. I came to this country about close to 30 years ago, and from India. And I was fortunate enough that I got married with my husband, and he is very focused on education. So as soon as I landed, the next year, he enrolled me in a program. I started my bachelor's. So I finished my bachelor's in Alabama, Huntsville, Alabama, and then I did my master's in computer science. So right after that, of course, I didn't have any kids, so I continued on and, did my job for about 10 years, which took me places from Huntsville to Las Vegas to Phoenix to San Jose, and then finally to Seattle. So when we moved here to Seattle back in 2006, or just even before that, I had my son, my first son, who was born after 11 years. So at that point, I made a conscious decision that, I'm going to, take a break from work and concentrate on family. And once we moved here in 2006, my husband was instrumental in starting a nonprofit organization here in Redmond, which is called the Muslim Association of Puget Sound. And I got involved in community activism that way. So specifically around education. So if you know anything about MAPS, that's the short form that we call, it brings people from 60 different countries talking various languages all across the spectrum, anywhere from the lowest level to the high level C-suite people. So being in the education, I got to interact with not just the children who are coming there to learn the secular and the non-secular education, but also parents who have come here through as immigrants, as refugees, as people who have, somehow gotten a lottery or whatever. When they get here, it's a maze for them. It was very hard for them to navigate the space. I myself, right now, my son is an 18-year-old, and I know how hard it is to, navigate the college space with all the information. So these people who may not be savvy enough in their language skills, or all the other opportunities that are out there that we somehow take for granted and that's not apparent to the common public, I started, people just kind of started reaching out to me, asking me about, hey, how do I go about doing unemployment benefits? Immigration, how do I fill out this paper? I need to rent an apartment, can you help me through those process? Anything and everything, even, ESL skills, So I kind of became more of a person kind of helping people in all these different resources. And after about 10 or 12 years of break, when I wanted to go back, my heart was not into getting into more of a technology job. So being in the community and working with people, that was something that just was, I was very passionate about. So I was looking for something that was combination of tech and community. And at that time, one of our very good family friend who left Microsoft after 20 plus years of working in Microsoft, he went over to start a startup. And he said, hey, and he came from more of a testing background as debt. And so he said, there's so much talent that we need. And why don't you start something that could maybe train talent here locally and help place them in the tech sector? So that sounded like a thing. And I took it a little further, saying that, I'm going to focus on underrepresented communities, women, minorities, and people of color, and see how I can help train them and help place them in the tech sector. So that is the genesis of Skillspire. So it was definitely out of passion that it was born, and continues to survive that way. Because every day when people pick up the phone and talk to me, I'm talking to people from Kenya, from Africa, from South Africa, from Congo, from Ethiopia, from Somalia, from Mexico. These people have the drive. Sometimes they have come with a degree, in, say, computer science, math. But when they come here, the degrees that you have in all these different countries do not translate very well. So now they're having to go take another program, another 4-year degree program, which for that they don't have the money, they don't have the time, because when they get here as an immigrant, as a refugee, they have to hit the ground running from day one, right? So they were just doing odd jobs. Now they get into Port of Seattle, they're doing airport jobs, they're doing caregiving, and all the while their computer science degree and all the degrees or IT degree or what their thing is completely shelved. So these are the types of people that come to us, and they're saying that, what, I wasted almost 5-6 years of my life doing these jobs. I know I can do much better than this. Can you help me? And so that's where we take them and train them anywhere from 4 months to 5 months. And starting in 2020, we also started focusing not just on the training skills, but also on to place these graduates in the companies. So far, I don't have to talk this, but then the testimonials that you see, people who have graduated have been extremely happy, because even our instructors, I have to say, that come from these backgrounds, who know how to, empathize with these students, meet them at the level at where they are, and slowly, help them, bring out the best in them. So it needs a lot of mentorship. It needs a lot of support, because life challenges definitely comes through at every point of time with these people. Either it's some family emergency, or it's, hey, I have a family back in, my country and I need to go, or I have to send money to these people and I'm sorry, I cannot, pay this thing. So it's a huge barrier and a challenge. But we're still, with the help of organizations that I partner with, community organizations with state funding. We've been able to help some of the students in their financial challenges. So one of the biggest challenges that, and I'm jumping over to the challenge part that we're going to be talking about, right now, everybody, and I don't have to say this, Microsoft came out with a huge digital skills initiative with the platforms like LinkedIn and much more. Google is promoting their programs. Every company is saying about training and reskilling people who've been unemployed. So the focus right now is on these people. Everyone seems to agree that we have to concentrate. And I had written published an article, I think right around March when COVID struck us, about how the inequities that has been laid bare due to COVID. We see that, because I deal with these people every single day, the Uber drivers who are driving and making their money and who are going to, pay their tuition. Now they see themselves as like, hey, I don't have a job. Now, either you can, do this free for me, or, get me some sort of a state funding. So, so we really see, and then we see the tech sector and, all the people who work in the tech sector from the comfort of their home, they're working, right? It's just business as usual. So it's a pretty sad state. The people that, I have, in fact, I'm talking to a lady now. She's been here for 4 years. She has a computer science degree from Ethiopia, extremely smart. And she says, I'm on DSHs, I'm on food stamps. I cannot afford the $3,000 or $4,000 that you are charging. Help me out. So I am working with, associations like TRAC and Pacific, who get the state funding to, help her enroll in the program. And I've told her that, what, even if you're able to pay just half the amount, go ahead, take the course. Because you have such a great background, I want to help you, see you through successful, say 6 or 8 months from now. Now, this is just one person, me, being woman-owned business, minority woman-owned business, trying to tackle such a huge problem. This problem is beyond me, right? It's a huge issue. And being a very small startup, how do I get my word across about the mission that we have, the huge problem that we're trying to solve? How do I scale? Very, very simply. So let's start there.
Yeah, well, thank you, Yasmin. I think that, one, you've done a beautiful job. And I think that what you have that differentiates you amongst anything that any of these big tech companies can do is that you have a high degree of a high personal touch. The work that Microsoft has done, I'm not familiar with other programs, and even with Microsoft, it's a LinkedIn initiative. This is based on, curriculum that's been established, but it's very much a one way, you sign up, you take it. There's no hand holding, there's no ongoing support. And so I think right then and there is a really big point of differentiation that you have and that you can use as being a way to offer up your services. I also don't think that, I don't think anything's going to change anytime soon. When we start to think about Google this year has said that people are going to be working home until next July. The way that we think about labor in the United States and unemployment will continue on. And we're at a point where it's going to be a shift from what I personally believe is the goal of trying to find new jobs and new skills. There's also identifying the grief and recovery process that we are all so desperately in need of. And so when I think about what and space you're available in, I think if you compare yourself to the Googles and the Microsofts of the world, it's going to be a frustrating exercise. Instead, I think it's probably better for you to focus on what you can do differently. And you said that in your first statement. You said that you have focused on underserved populations, people of color, and women. And I think that's really where you can call out success in what you're trying to do. So I was curious, when you talk about wanting to scale and wanting to do more, what are your next goals for the next 6 months, for the next 12 to 18 months, how are you thinking about, when you think scale, what does that look like? What does success mean to you in that space?
So that's a very good question. So, and it's twofold. On the one side, I don't think we've tapped into the population that we really want to target, right? I mean, the first year in 2016 when I started, the way I started to approach this thing is reached out to several community organizations, be it Jewish Family Services, Neighborhood House, Welcome Back Center, the community colleges, those, in South Seattle. So I try to, advocate to them that, if you have people coming to you with a degree in anything, and if they have a passion for tech, and if they are interested in getting into tech, then send them our way, right? So that's where, so recruitment is number one. That's the challenge. Now, getting our word out in recruitment. And then once we get that numbers, now once we train them, how do we help place them in the jobs, right? That's the second challenge. Europe, for instance, has been doing a fantastic job of 6 months of training and 6 months of apprenticeship, and that has really helped the students. And this is mostly around, I think Europe has focused mostly on IT support and help desk, but we are taking it to the other level. Like, for instance, if Europe were to graduate IT supports people, and if they want to get into software engineering, we are on a great platform where we can skill up. So I think Europe, which has been around for a long time, has been able to successfully do it through their network of people, right? So if I had some network into Microsoft, for instance, then I would be able to train all these people and help them get into these people, where I know that Microsoft is looking for diverse talent. They are looking for African Americans right now. So I need that connection. I need to Skillspire needs to be known. Our mission needs to be known to these big companies. And how do we accomplish that?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think, were you saying, was it Year Up? Is that another similar type of organization?
So Year Up focuses only ages 20 to 24.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, understood.
And they focus just on more like IT admin and admin support, things like that.
Yeah. I think there's probably, when we talk about the big companies, and it's not just Microsoft. So you have Amazon, you have Google, you have Facebook, Apple's up here now. We are known as one of the top cloud computing cities in the US. And I think that's really where you can focus on. Anytime that you are in the size of organization that you have, being really crystal clear on your focus will help you be successful. So we talked about recruiting being your number one, and then placement being your number two goals. That's what you're trying to achieve. Recruitment is recruiting of new students. Do you consider are they students? Is that who comes through your cohort? Is that how you?
Right, students.
Correct. So you're looking for more students. That becomes then your revenue stream. Are you also collecting revenue? And you don't need to disclose any information in that if you're not comfortable, but I'm curious, as part of your placement and recruiting services, is that a fee-based system that you then charge a company to place with them students from your program?
We're in the very early stages of even placement. Right now, I think just in the last 2 months, we've been able to place students, but it's mostly unpaid apprenticeships, internships, and first-time jobs. So there's no money involved. But going forward, if we have really good candidates, we hope to do that. But yeah.
Awesome. I will say this, and to everybody on the phone call here, I think that unpaid apprenticeships and unpaid internships are the bane of our very existence. I think that if we are going to have anybody come in to do work around us, we should pay them what we pay everybody else. And so I hate hearing that. I know it's a great way to get, experience, but I also think it's rude. So I will never, ever hire somebody for a free or unpaid apprenticeship or internship. I've got teenagers who can do that stuff, so it's fine. But I will say that I think it's baloney. So I guess if your focus, I'm assuming then, Yasmin, as long as you have a good recruitment pipeline, whether that comes through community, which I think is a beautiful way to approach it, and continuing to do that, then that would naturally build in people who then can be placed, and you can think about what that placement component looks like. I will say all of these tech companies work with technical recruiting firms who they will reach out to find what jobs and roles are opening, what's happening, et cetera. And that's kind of how they get those things going and how they get it out. In terms of the broad marketing experiences, when I reviewed all of your digital footprint, it's all beautifully done. So kudos to you on that. And you're doing all of the right things. I think that where we are right now is this ridiculously strange and insane time period where we were all trying to lead, what is the new normal? And it's not giving us credit for leading these really extraordinary lives that we have right now. There are people who are, as you pointed out, who had been Uber drivers who no longer have any income because we're not going anywhere. There are people who, my children, for those of you who have children as well, coming home in March and being out of school and finishing their school year. They're not taking their SATs, they're doing AP testing online. All of these things are experiences that we can't even fathom. And so honestly, Yasmin, I think that it's that situation where you have probably the highest touch capacity right now. I would encourage you to do a couple things. One, I would survey your current cohort, find out to them what that you did help them find you, right? So what were the ways that were successful? It can be as easy as a survey monkey. It can be easy as just a quick email. What happened and how they hear about you. What worked, keep doing that. What didn't work, stop doing it. It's really hard to be objective when you're putting so much of your time and effort into what you're doing. But the truth is, you have all the data in front of you, I'm sure, to think through, is this working? Are we seeing people come in through LinkedIn? Is it coming in through newsletters? Is it coming in through just a community piece? Whatever's working, keep doing that. Whatever's not working, cut bait, be done with it. When it comes to then how and addressing the populations of minorities, as well as persons of color, you have to stay away from all of the big channels that don't make sense to that. This is where you go and talk to, as you have been, the immigration teams. People are coming in, smaller churches, community centers, really making your voice and well known there, what you can share with, and then using the people who have come through your program as your advocates as well. I can speak to the digital component, that's what I do best, but word of mouth is definitely an extension of how small businesses make a better impact. And it sounds to me like you're doing a really great job with that. I think that your original start in community organization is probably a passion point for you and is helpful to that. So those are the two things I would think about. Finally, I don't know if you're spending any funding when it comes to paid media in digital. It's the ugly truth of social media in that organic, nobody will see your information. When we talk about organic content, which is, I open up an Instagram page and I start posting content. Maybe I have a goat yoga studio and people who love goat yoga will see my stuff. They'll love it. It'll be fun. But I'm never going to break into something else if I'm not paying for that. What's nice about social media is that you don't have to spend a lot to boost your content beyond the channel that you have. So you can take information, you can take your ads, you can take your posts, and for very little money, get a little bit more reach. And that little bit of reach can get another set of eyeballs. And that's what you're paying for. You're trying to do something in a way that, it's an algorithm that's against all of us as brands. And for good reason. Social media is where we go to watch our families, to watch our friends, to watch, things that we are passionate about. And you don't want some brand shoving in their content. But it's definitely a way where you can start to build further than your current reach by paying for that a little bit.
Yeah, I just wanted to tell you, right, I think over 60% is actually coming from referrals, which is great.
That is really great.
It's word of mouth and referrals. That has been the thing. But that's a trickle, right? It trickles in. It takes time. And I think we're also at a space where right now companies at this time, during all this, the situation that we're in right now, companies are actually reaching out to us asking for more diverse talent, which is the other side. Yeah. So, but then I don't have enough students graduating.
Yep.
right? I mean, it's a chicken and egg story right now.
Yeah.
So, to your answer about paid media, we've been doing very little. We've done Facebook. We've done Facebook and Instagram, a little bit of Google. Google can be quite expensive. So funding is thing. And also, I do want to let you know and audience know that we are a for-profit but a social impact organization. So I guess now the term is purpose-driven. Entrepreneur is what I would call myself. And one of the main reasons, people, when I start talking, they always ask me, why did you not do it as a nonprofit? It was very simple to me. I mean, I wanted to have an organization that is very agile, not because the technologies that we were focusing tends to change really fast. And I wanted to have an organization where we can make quick decisions and move forward. And, social impact doesn't necessarily have to be nonprofit either. You know, um, you know, yeah, so I mean that's probably the only reason. And because of that, a lot of the funding gets shut down. I can't even apply because we're not a 501c3.
Yeah.
So which means that we have a very very small marketing budget, and got to work with what we have.
So I think it's great that you are doing this as for profit. Again, I don't think, as much as we would love to have the ability to do these things out of the goodness of our heart, the truth is that it's difficult to make those things happen. And to your point, it lacks agility when you are trying to make changes. However, that being said, it also does limit what's available to you from a grant or funding perspective outside of that. I don't have enough knowledge to pick through what could be interesting ways to consider separating the two sides of what you're trying to do. What comes to mind, and it's just a random thought, you can dismiss it. Has anybody ever heard of, oh man, I'm gonna mess it up now. It's a water charity. Is it called Clean Water? Someone help me. I'll think about it. So the gentleman who started it wanted to go and provide service to do wells and to go create clean water around the world. Unfortunately, anybody who was looking at a nonprofit situation noticed that most nonprofits raise funds to pay for the administration part of what they're trying to do. And when most people give money to a nonprofit, they want to give it to who it's going to be deserving to get. So if I'm going to give money to go build a well, I want to see that well be built. I don't necessarily want to see it go to stamps or envelopes or office supplies for that company. And so what he did was that he separated the two. He funded through corporate means the operational administration cost of it, and then any person who paid into or donated to the nonprofit part, it went directly into developing and building water wells, et cetera. He went further and hired people in those countries that were most impacted, and then started to use things like RFID chips and tags. So you could see exactly if you gave $20, that $20 went to help this driller that was then set up in a country that you can on map find out where you went to. So ways to tease apart what could be nonprofit and for-profit could create more complexity, but I'm just curious if there's a way that you can still take advantage of some of the opportunities in terms of funding or grants or loans in that regard. The truth is there's no magic bullet. And I think that with right now, so much that we have going on in the world with COVID, with global pandemics. I mean, I was looking at a map earlier today within the world. Basically, there are probably 4 countries that we can all go visit right now because we're living the dumpster fire that is the American dream. So having said that, it's a hard time. And I know that's not an easy answer, and I know that's not helpful, but I think that you're doing the right things, and I think to continue to do those things will be helpful. And I would love to connect with you in a few months to just kind of see how things are going, because I do think that the world will change again. None of us could ever imagine or pretend to know what was going to happen 4 weeks ago, 6 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago. Even today, things are changing at a dramatic pace. But it's one where I think there are probably ways to brainstorm other activities and tactics, especially as we see things changing again and again and again. I keep moving back and forth because one of the cats cannot get out the door by herself. And so she is asking me to open the door. So this is why I keep leaning back and forth. I'm not a weirdo, but it's the cat. So are there any other questions that you have, things that I can help you with, anything that might be helpful to spark, or if there's somebody else who has questions for Yasmin or for myself?
I'll go ahead and jump in with one of my questions. I hear that one of the goals for our client Yasmin here is to, have that network of bigger companies, bigger platforms. So how can you see smaller companies like Yasmin's to use social media and secure a partnership and amplify their voices by partnering with bigger corporations?
Yeah, it's interesting. It's one of the situations where some companies have that ability and they have an easy way in. They've got small programs for small businesses. They have startup communities. So like Techstars is a great one. Even the startup community in Seattle itself has a lot to offer. I think that's where you go and get into it. There's not a formal partnership program at companies the size of Amazon or Google or Microsoft. But there are parts and parcel within them where there are areas that have sometimes that dual place marketplace. I know that we just created one with AI developers. There are things in pockets of it, but when it comes to anything beyond that, I would have to look and see if there is something, but I don't have since I don't work in HR and don't have a recruiting background, it's a new space for me to understand how that works.
And if you have any questions, feel free to put in the chat box. I have another question. So how do you see small businesses lead the digital transformation in a post-pandemic world?
Is there going to be a post-pandemic world?
Right.
It's a really good question. I think what I've seen to be true so far in all the experiences I've had since, March 5th, when I got the email from our COO to go ahead and work from home for the next few weeks. Large businesses can weigh the weather. They can weigh the storm a little bit better. We're all in the same storm. We're just in different boats. I don't know where I heard that from, but I love that analogy. And I think that small businesses can do a better job of managing their one-to-one relationships, of managing their finances, of being really diligent. And I think what they do in terms of this next generation coming up, the Gen Z generation, is that when you combine it with things like you've done, Yasmin, which is social good as part of your organization, I think that's where you lead the way. I think you lead the way by making decisions that are based on your customers and your advocates, not based on profits or profitability. And I think that's what we see more often now are these smaller companies and even larger ones that are doing work for good. I think about REI. What retailer in the entire world would close down on one of the biggest shopping days to encourage people to go outside and be with their families? And I think that in this current pandemic, we're all being forced inside. We're all being forced with the same few people that we have. I don't know what your bubble looks like. My bubble's pretty small. I'm blessed that my parents live close by, so we've had at least, siblings and sisters and whatnot. But I think it comes down to those one-to-one connections and relationships, as well as that commitment to doing the right thing when it comes to social good, that I think will allow those small companies to actually lead in digital transformation, because they're going to have the ability to stay connected to their customers and their audiences as we move forward.
I'll be keep asking questions if you guys don't have questions.
I'm gonna put a question in. We've got time, you guys. I'm sitting here just sweating with the rest of you.
It is more expensive to acquire new customers than retaining existing customers. So how do you see social media as a tool, as a way to, evangelize current customers in the situation we're in right now?
First of all, I would challenge that statement a little bit. I think that anybody who's in the basis of acquiring customers and/or retaining customers, there are probably some HBR case studies that y'all have done or can go look at to see what it looks like. But understanding what that cost is important. and understanding what that cost over the lifetime value of your customer is important. When I was at Starbucks, like I said, I led product marketing when we released the mobile payment system of the app. This was years ago, so whatever numbers I have are made up at this point in time. But I knew that, and I had done the math, that for people who came in and downloaded the app, as long as they opened it within a certain amount of time, let's say 14 days, and used it once, then I knew that they would be committed to using that over the lifetime of them being a customer. And what that then returned was incremental value back to the company. Let's say it was $5 a month, right? So if I could get 100,000 people to download the app and use it just once in 14 days, I knew that would bring back 500, not 500,000. Is that right? No. Someone,
Not great at math either.
just so we're clear, my background, I went to school. I have a degree in liberal arts with a minor in creative writing. I fell into digital in the early 2000s, late 90s. And that's where I got here. I didn't get here because I coded anything. I will say, let's see, whatever that ends up being. So that would be back incremental to the company. And so when you start to get into the numbers is where you actually can have and differentiate what that cost looks like. When it comes down to retaining customers, advocacy and brand advocacy through social is always going to be your best way. And this is, you know, it's the net promoter score that we all want, which is, would you recommend this company or service to somebody else? And that's what social media is. It's letting someone else be there to tell you what they know, what they don't know, and to share what that looks like, whether that's on Yelp reviews, whether that's, you know, through LinkedIn, whatever it may be. Those are the areas and spaces where you can use and find advocates for your brands, for your brand of yourself, to really help retain and sell in what could be a really good experience.
Thank you very much.
So Kelly, I had a question.
Please.
So I can say from, you know, in just these last 3 months that it is just so much more harder to convert people, right? I mean, especially the people that come to me because most of them are unemployed and trying to transition into a career.
Yep.
How do we help them? I mean, I scramble. I mean, I am fighting for funds with any of the state funding through WIOA, the Workforce Innovation Program. And, you know, I've reached out to even religious organizations where they have been able to, you know, fund some of them. Any other ideas?
Yeah, I think you're in a global pandemic right now. Hold on just a second.
We're gonna go watch Holiday Nights.
Okay. High schoolers in my house. When we go back into and we're looking at how people are spending right now, and we've watched this happen with the benefit of the additional unemployment stimulus, which was helpful to a lot of people, is ending. And as it does end, people will not be spending money more. And so it may be interesting to reconsider what your model for your classes and instructions looks like. If that's smaller mini certificate programs, if that's a one-to-one piece, if that is some sort of delayed effort, but if there's a way that it's not one whole commitment or whole expense at this point in time, if that would be helpful. I think about things like both of my kids play select sports, and those are expensive endeavors. But because we don't know what's going to happen in terms of whether or not people actually can play or get on the field or actually have sports in contact is unknown. And so right now, all of the programs and organizations that support them are doing so at a reduced rate or an extended payment schedule or rate so that we can actually get playing. But if something changes, families aren't out a significant amount. So I don't know if there's any opportunity for you to look through and think about how your revenue is sourced. If that's something that could be helpful in that space.
Yeah, so we are getting creative in that. Of course, you know, we've always had, you know, the monthly payments, you know, just pay a small fee, get started. Then that, of course, opens up a huge can of worms as well, because, you know, people come, they take the course, but then they never pay, you know, so we end up with a huge bad debt. And then the other thing is also depending if a person has a strong technical background and if they're trying to skill up, then we are offering them programs like, you pay after you find a job, or we'll help you find a job. And so you pay after that. So, so we're kind of experimenting with all those things because, I think at this time, people need a boost of confidence, and as well as, any support that, can be given.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's, that's going to continue to have to happen. I'm teaching in the fall, and one of the conversation starters we've been having is, how do I help you all who may be in classes this fall? How do we think about the grief that's around all of us right now? And so people who are trying to take and get, a different career, and how do they get to that different stage of their life in different direction? I think that you've probably got a beautiful model for that support and coaching care. But at the same time, you need to be paid and recognized for that effort. I do think one of the ways that you can get into that could be, again, looking at that technical placement. And then I don't know if this is true. So if someone is on the call who's done recruiting or knows recruiters or whatnot, from my experience, executive recruiters will be paid only once they place somebody. So, and they're paid by the company, they're not paid by the person who's getting the job. So I'm wondering if there's a way, if you could pick the brains of somebody who is a recruiter, to find out what could be there in that way. So now I've been moved out of my chair a little bit by that one. I don't like that much. So it's, again, there's no, like, we're all in such a new space. I think that, to your credit, you're thinking really flexibly about how these things could work. That could be another one, is how do you maybe flip what you're doing, and how do you start to do more placements from a technical perspective, maybe not even your alumni or graduates, but at least to get your foot in the door on what that could be in terms of staffing.
Right. I mean, I think I did not mention one of the, and among all the other challenges is also, everyone wants either mid-level or senior level people to start with, people who graduate new. It's a tough sell. And now when you're coming from a coding boot camp, and you may or may not be able to project yourself really well. You may be strong very technically, but then you may not say the story, paint that picture. So all those challenges go into this thing. And so that's why, our team, my team, has been, every time we meet with the student, talk to them, give them that support, and kind of paint a holistic picture of them and what they've accomplished in their past, and, how we tie it into what they're doing right now. Yep. And then present it to the, the recruiter. And those things seem to be working quite well, I should say.
That's good. That's good news. There was something that we did at Disney. It was called the Code Rosie program. And this was where we took women at the company who wanted to learn to be technical and learn coding, and actually put them through a year-long program, mentorship, coding, training skills, etc. And at the end of that year, they interviewed for roles within the company, and some of them stayed and some left to go to other places, but they all had, a year's worth of experience when it came to actually being developers. I'm wondering if there's a way for you to think, I'm just trying to get flexible in your business model. I'm wondering if there's a way for you to think about doing something like that as a package to a company, right? So you can go to one of those smaller, mid-sized level technology companies that need support and say, hey, here's what I want to do. I want to take the women who are in your organization. If they want to do something around coding, let's pilot it out, see what happens. I'll take 3 people, 3 headcount, 3 roles, do the whole program, have them placed, and see how that goes. But trying to think through how do you create a repeatable source of income based on what you've already put in place, and what you already have in terms of what's possible with developing new developers.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you're saying that, because that's exactly what I've been talking to Europe, right? I mean, so they've been able to place all these candidates, hundreds of candidates within Microsoft in IT admin, help desk. And so, we were talking about maybe we reach out to these people and say, hey, do you want to go the software engineering route? Then, we help train you. and, just give them back to Microsoft.
Yeah, there's ways to think about that.
Yeah.
I love that.
Right. I mean, I guess there's there are a lot of different ways, but then it goes back to how much I know, who's my network, right?
Yeah.
And who do I know who can pull the strings for me inside these companies?
Yep.
So
That's how we start, right? So this is how it happens. You've met me, we've met you, we now are LinkedIn. I will give you the same gift I give everybody who gets into my network. You're more than welcome to ask me for introductions. My only caveat is if I don't know the person very well, if I don't like them, I'm not going to introduce you to them. Sorry. I've learned that one too many times. They're like, can I meet so-and-so? I'm like, no, that guy's a jerk. No. But it's always available to you and to anyone who's on the call, and anyone who's ever taken one of my classes knows that that's available to you. If anything I can do is to help network, always. We have about 9 minutes left. I know we're trying to wrap up here pretty quickly. Yvonne, do you want me to take any of the questions in the chat?
Yeah, we have 3 questions in the chat right now. First one is, how would you advise a small business with limited budget to compete in today's crazy social media market?
Yeah. I think it really goes back to your goals, right? So it always goes back to goals, even with the work that we do. Some of you may have seen the Windows Ugly Sweater campaign that my team has done a couple years in a row now. That came out of an insight that we saw on social, which was people love nostalgia. In the US, people love ugly sweaters around the holidays. And so we put together the 2 of them and created the ugly sweater for Windows. And then we were able to surprise and delight fans and followers, etc. There was 0 business goal around that. It was all around brand love and brand awareness. So it really comes down to, who is your audience? What are you trying to accomplish with them in social media? If it's brand building, great. That just means going in and keeping at it. If it means actually having them transact in social, that's a little bit more difficult to do. When I took the first class, I think they call it now one of the core classes. Hanson talked a lot about networks and nodes and what social networks do. And social networks are very loosely connected. You and I, we all can raise a hand. We can, send an emoji. We can heart something. We might share it or forward it. But for us to take physical action is a higher bar. And so when you think about what your goal is in social for your company, that should help you be able to compete in the space that makes the most sense. I think what's challenging is, especially when small businesses are looking at in the B2B space, trying to use B2B social is, in my opinion, one of the more difficult challenges. I think if you look at it as a whole content marketing play, you have a better experience. But when it comes to strictly social, it just really is dependent upon what you're putting into the channels, which channels you're in, and are those the right channels for the audience that you're trying to reach in growing your business or your organization.
Awesome, thank you. And then we have another question from Hannah. How important are hashtags? Does using hashtags make a difference or impact?
They do. I had somebody one time. Okay, so there's a new Instagram account out there for anybody who works in social. I think it's called Sip and Social Tea is what it's called. It's a little too real. I have to not love everything they put in, but there's definitely, I could send them a ton of things to share. I had an executive one time ask me if we could buy a hashtag. And I was like, no, you can't do that. That's not how it works. So hashtags are great for platforms that use them, right? Hashtags on Facebook are dumb. They're not that effective. But hashtags on Twitter, hashtags on Instagram are helpful. Hashtags on TikTok are a whole new beast. I think that TikTok has taken them into a different direction that whenever I go through and look at it, I'm always like, I don't even know what this means anymore. So they are there. You think of them as a search function first and foremost, which is how people actually get to use them. Beyond that, I think they only make sense in platforms that they make sense to be in. So I think they're important. I use them. We use them in our content. It helps to create the right ones. I would say my formula for hashtags is a couple things. One, look it up, do the research. Is someone else using it? Does it have something? Being in social media is funny. You have this insight into the world that most people don't have. And you see people who are fantastic and they do wonderful work. They're generous and kind. And you see the underbelly dirt bags and just the grossness of society. And so I always look at hashtags with half of my mind getting excited about it and the other half waiting to see what's going to show up. It'll be some inappropriate content, or it'll be somebody who's got hate speech. Like there's something always around there. So always look up and see what you're looking at for a hashtag. 2, don't try to create a hashtag too hard. Sometimes it's okay just to go grab the ones that are out there. Hashtag Flashback Friday, hashtag, I can't even think of them right now. Anyways, but there are ways to think about it. You don't have to create something new each and every time. You can use the ones that are there, but use ones that are appropriate or make sense. And then finally, try and find ones that really tie into what you're doing. Don't try to get one that's too far out there. That just makes it difficult. And you certainly don't need to use 10 of them on a post. That's not necessary as well.
Hello, my name is Zaris. Nice to meet you. I just told Voni that I was gonna ask a question, so I unmuted myself upon her confirmation. So hello, Kelly and Yasmin. My name is Zaris. I actually just graduated from the Master of Entrepreneurship program. Just visiting here, and then I'm from Remy Health. We are a pre-seed stage startup. Born from the University of Washington, and then we offer the first FDA-registered ear, nose, throat monitor designed especially for parents. And then we are a telemedicine-enabled app to provide real-time tracking and monitoring. So we have developed this product, and then we're ready to scale. Our pre-order is in September. And then we've done multiple things with our limited budget in order to get the words out and then build awareness from the consumer side. And then the only thing that worked, I think, was our recent article on GeekWire that gained great tractions, but it's right now after the week the trend starts decreasing on our side, we see, but that's the only connection that we have with PR is GeekWire. So I was wondering, are you familiar with connecting with PRs or news, or is there any advice for that?
Yeah, so a couple things. When you think about working with PR, PR's job is to land your information into an article or a news outlet. It's not to land with your chosen audience or consumer. And so when you think about, I don't know who's the end user for your product. Is it a parent? Is it a hospital? Is it?
It will be the end user will be the children, of course. So the parents will be the purchasers, and then they are. We also sell to physicians, but just like another otoscope, but it's mainly for parents who have kids. And then the user will be the parents. The device will be used on their kids.
But kids aren't buying them. It's going to be their parents. Yeah. So when you think about that, there are 2 stories that you're telling. One of them is the success of the company, and that's why GeekWire makes sense. But 2, in order to get parents and physicians excited about it, it's then looking at those magazines and articles and blogs that make sense to parents. And this is where the whole world of content marketing actually can be helpful. You could hire a PR firm to write articles for you. You could hire them to actually help connect you with some of the local mom. I mean, it's been a very long time since I had little ones. 18 years we're talking. But I know there are tons and tons of blogs and mom groups that are out there. I led parenting groups for 15 years through the Program for Early Parent Support, which is PEPS. So if you are, plug here, if you're having a child or have had a child recently, go talk to your doctor about getting associated with PEPS, because other first-time parents need other first-time parents. But those are the ways in, is to really divide and conquer, right? GeekWire is going to give you great press coverage. Press coverage doesn't necessarily equal sales or pre-order in that capacity.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
And we have one last question from the audience. Besides hashtags, how small businesses and nonprofit organizations can reach out to more audience through social media?
Yeah, it really is about building that brand presence. And so I love the idea of blogs. I love the idea of writing articles to submit. I don't know if anybody knows this, but Forbes is primarily made up of independent writers who have nothing to do with Forbes. So there are lots of areas and ways, but you have to create, right? We talk about this a lot, the ComLead program. You have to create content. And whatever that content looks like, if it is short form video, if it is a YouTube channel, if it is a blog, if it is a Tumblr, whatever it may be, those are areas and ways that you can start to beat that drumbeat. Because once you land in digital, you become part of that broader footprint. And we all know that search online is how people find information for everything. And so if people are searching for you and they see you and you're showing up in these multiple places, you're creating that larger, broader network and footprint than previously. And again, it goes back to what's the point of what you're trying to do, right? So if as a nonprofit it's to get donors, that's a different route than you would take if it's a small business who has maybe, you know, resume services for newly graduated college students. Yeah, that's what I was thinking of.
Awesome. As we're wrapping up, Kelly, would you like to share a few key takeaways for our audience?
Yeah. So I think that one, Yasmin, thank you for your time. I appreciate it. It was great to meet you, and I do hope that you stay in touch. Two, to everybody else, social media is simply one part of your mix, right? When you think about digital, you have many channels available to you, both across paid, earned, and owned experiences. As you think through what you want to do, start first with what your goal is. Be clear about that. Be able to articulate it well, because that goal will then tell you which steps to go to next in order to formulate your entire digital framework and digital piece. The last thing I will say is that digital is not always what you need. The truth is, there are times when I've worked at companies where using something that was hardworking, like a printed flyer, was far more successful than anything we could do in digital. So while digital is great and it's easy, you can do it from yourself, take a chance to really understand what your audience is looking for, get to know them, and build experiences that would make them come back again and again and again. Other than that, I would say to everybody to please be safe, wear a mask. I do hope that at some point in time we can bring these back to being in person. If you are doing anything in terms of looking at classes this fall, I am teaching. The course is called Leadership at Every Level, and it's really about extending ways to be a leader, whether or not you are the top of the organization, but in any capacity of the organization. Find me on LinkedIn. Like I said, I'm happy to connect. It's under Kelly Myers. You can find it. And as I told Yasmin, I'm happy to help any of you in any way I can. Just know if I don't know somebody or if I don't like them, I will not share an introduction.
Awesome. Thank you, Kelly. Just a few announcements as we wrap up our event. Thanks to the members of the ComLead COVID Consultancy, especially Evelyn Guo, for your excellent work in putting these events together. Thank you, Mo, for tech support and for help facilitating our Q&A. Thanks to Alex Stonehill, our ComLead Head of Creative Strategy, for his leadership with the COVID Consultancy. We'll be sending out the video capture for tonight, a short takeaway, and a brief survey, so keep an eye out for these items in your inbox. If this kind of conversation appeals to you, consider pursuing a graduate degree from ComLead. Not to toot my own horn, but it's pretty awesome. You can visit our website to learn more about our program. If you're in need of pro bono communication consulting, please connect with COVID Consulting. The link to our website will be added in the chat as well.